Welcome to From the Mind of Christine McConnell. So I know I did a live stream last month showing how to make these napkins, but in case that wasn't super helpful to anyone, I figured I've already filmed all of this and I'm gonna just make a quick little condensed video for you. So I hope it's helpful. I initially thought I was going to be able to go to a fabric store and just find one of these shades of pink, and that was, it didn't work out. So I am going to have to dye fabric to match exactly sort of what I'm picturing. The color I'm trying to achieve is a very peachy pink. So I'm going to have to use a lot of yellow, and I usually always like using just a splash of black dye on these projects, just because it tones down the vibrancy of the color. I then cut out 12 napkins that are 27 by 27 inches. I'm dousing these with quite a bit of spray starch just because I want the fabric to be as stiff and crisp as possible. When the napkins are completely finished, I'll launder out all of the starch just because it tends to make the fabric feel a little uncomfortable to touch. My finished napkins are going to be pretty large, what you'd call a buffet size napkin. And what I'm going to do first is sort of create a big sheet of paper, tape several pieces together so it's large enough, and then sketch out the design that I want into one corner of it, and then repeat that pattern over and over again. I'm using a fine point permanent marker to outline the edges of my pattern. You're not going to ultimately see this edge because it's going to be covered up by thread. So the fact that it's permanent doesn't really matter. It just makes it very helpful when you're sewing. I found this product called Fuse and Tear, and it's so helpful just because it really gives the fabric a lot of stiffness as you're working on these really sort of detailed edges, and then it just tears away when you're finished. I ultimately realized it was most effective to just work on one side of the napkin at a time. So what I'm doing is cutting out strips of this Fuse and Tear and ironing it to the underside of the pattern. That way it gives a lot of stiffness, but then on the opposite side you can clearly see the line when you're sewing. If you don't have a serger like I don't, you could do this edging on a standard sewing machine. You just want to use the zigzag stitch with a width of 5.0 and a distance of 0.3. Every time you hit a point while you're sewing this, you want to lift up the lever, shift the fabric, and begin sewing again. The next step is to trim away the edges. I'm using the tiniest scissors that I own, and I'm getting as close as I possibly can so that there's not too much fray on the edges, but then I'm also not quite snipping into the stitching that I just did. And now we're ready to do the finishing stitch. This is a little bit tricky just because you always want to make sure the points are constantly facing you. So it does take a lot of, lifting up the lever and reshifting constantly. Just because if you try to feed one of the points into the machine, it's just going to get kind of bungled up and not really look very good. Out of curiosity, I decided to time myself and see how long this process takes. Each napkin was roughly about an hour and a half, which is kind of time consuming, but theoretically these should last a long time, so you won't have to do this very often. And now you just snip away all those stray threads. It's very strangely fun to tear this stuff away. I don't know why. Then you just repeat this process all the way around on all the edges. Once you're finished and you've got a whole stack of them done, you can wash them, wash out all that starch, get them nice and supple again, and let's move on to folding. I found a slightly better technique on how to do this from what I showed in the live stream, so hopefully this will be even more helpful. I hope this was helpful. Obviously, in the picture of the napkin that I posted, I had endless amounts of time to sort of just like fiddle with it until it was totally perfect. And if you're doing this for a dinner party, you really just need to be like punching them out. So it doesn't really matter if they're not totally perfect. I had a cameraman over my shoulder and was trying to get it done as quickly as possible. So this one wasn't absolutely the ideal of what it can be, and they don't really need to be because when you see them all on the table together, they really do look so beautiful. So take care of yourselves. I'll see you again very soon. Sometimes I look down at him and it's like weekend at Bernie's, and you're like, are you still with us? Oh, he's there.